I had to learn that I could have relationships with people where we both loved each other, but because of them and where they were, not me, they had to go. And spirit cleared them out. And then spirit was like, "You good?" I was like, "Nah, bro. If someone is coming in actively trying to love you and you're over here going, oh, I don't know, oh, I can't trust, that's annoying. It's annoying. Ew, that's just you throwing up and then you eating it. I don't want my business to be run off of other people and their money blocks, because then that makes me broke. And I gotta be real honest, I don't do well being broke. Good morning. I'm newlywed and surprisingly in a really good mood because I don't do mornings ever. My house is a mess, so we're gonna figure that out today, hopefully. But I was sleeping. No, I'm not, but I was, and I'm up now, and I had a lot of dreams. And in my dreams, I realized there was a lot of things that we needed to discuss, right? In the spirit of giving, because I'm recording this at the time around the holidays, but this is effective for literally whenever. It's not a holiday specific thing. You would think that the holidays would be a time of expansion, right? Where people would go into it, people talk about the spirit of giving, and people talk about, like, during this time, we live in a time of excess. More money is being spent. So if you're fortunate, you have gifts that are coming into you, right? So there's a lot of things going out, and there's a lot of things that are coming in. Oh, look at that. You know what? Because I'm like embarrassed on account of the internet, but I'm also like, y'all got dishes on the counter too. Okay, let's not be crazy. So this is like a period of time when we were all living in excess. But it does something that's really interesting in the collective energy where people start to feel tight, they start to get nervous, they start to close up, as opposed to working with the energy and then making the energy work for them. Because we have to remember that we're metaphysical beings, right? We work with energy because we acknowledge that it exists. Not everybody is like that. You have a lot of people who are muggles and they are living in their muggle world and they love being there. And it works for them. But for us, that's not the life that we're in, right? We know that we're a metaphysical being, which means we play by a different set of rules. Muggle logic does not work for us. We have to use metaphysical laws, metaphysical logic. And what happens is we come into this place of excess, which is really a form of expansion, right? And then what ends up happening is, instead of going, okay, I'm going to use this and identify it as like a form of currency and figure out how do I work with this energy, people shut down and they close off. So the next thing you know, everyone's closed off. And then everyone goes into 2024 with all these new blockages around rejection, around lack of love, around lack of acceptance, right? Because maybe you dealt with your family and your family were being assholes, and then here we are. Money blocks, right? Because instead of looking at it as a time of expansion where you had the opportunity to share your love through gift giving, or you had an opportunity to go outside and socialize with friends and family because you haven't done it for the previous 365 days, people go, oh, I spent all of this money, I now can't spend anything else, right? And the focus stays on the can't spend anything else, and it doesn't go back to, wow, that holiday season I had an opportunity to do this or see this person or see that person or have this experience or have that experience. All of the things that have happened go out the window. And now people are just focused on the money that they spent, the acceptance that they feel like they didn't have, the love that they feel like they didn't have. And it ends up being a time where people are like, oh, thank God I'm out of that period, instead of using that as an opportunity to do what you guys know how to do, which is alchemize the energy and figure out, how do I make this energy work for me, right? If you are in a season where people are giving and there are things that you would like to have, Don't you think you can alchemize that situation to go get the things that you actually want to have? If you are in a situation where you're like, I could actually use a little bit of help right now, no one's helping me, this is a season where people become helpful. So go ask for help, right? If you're like, oh, I have this business idea, but I'm too nervous to start it, or I don't know what to do, or I don't know what role or where to go, or like where to go, who to ask, then that's like when you go, you know what? I'm not going to wait until the plan is perfect. I'm going to go ahead and do something with it now. And then we're just going to launch, because if you want to launch anything, such a good time to do it is around the holidays, because people are giving, people are receptive, people are looking for gifts. And so if you want to be able to use a time to test an idea, right? So like maybe you don't have all the details ironed out yet, but if you want to test, if you want like proof of concept, right? That you're onto something, this is the time of year when you would do it, because everyone right now is open and they are receptive, right? That also has to do with love. People now are more social, they're out and about, they're moving around. It's a little cold outside. And if you are snarling at everybody that you see, then how are you supposed to end up with a man or a woman, whatever? I have to make a morning milk tea. See, it's from Amazon. I was about to be like, it's important. It's not. Well, I mean, maybe it is. No, it's not. It's not. I'm pretty sure it's English. Whatever. Allow the time to work for you. Stop being in a situation where you're like, oh, everything around me sucks. All life around me sucks, because it's gonna suck if you think it does. And it's such a cliche, right? But because we're metaphysical beings, our life is going to mirror our belief. You can have someone that is a muggle who is running around saying, everything sucks, everything sucks. You're looking at them, but like, I don't really get what you're talking about, because everything is working out for you. I feel like things aren't working out for me, right? It's because they're playing by a different set of rules, right? They have muggle rules, they have simulation rules, they have matrix rules that they're going off of, right? And matrix rules are you do this and then you get this and you become rewarded. But that's not what you are. You're a metaphysical being. And you all have metaphysical teams, spirit teams. That means you're playing in multiple dimensions and you're playing in multiple realms. So use it to your advantage. Mr. Crane, how do I use it? Start being metaphysical. I get a lot of metaphysical assistance, a lot of metaphysical help. I talk to the spirits all day, every day. Sometimes we even argue. Okay? But what I do is tell them what I do want, I tell them what I don't want, and I ask for help on a regular and continuous basis. When I'm stumped and I don't have the answer to questions, I start asking for help. Yesterday, this past week, I've been struggling with something, right? I have been struggling because I'm going to be a new practitioner in a metaphysical space, and practitioners set their own rates. And the only rule is that you don't go lower than the lowest price. Because obviously you'll do that. You'll come in and you'll sweep out all the clients, right? So we just don't do that. Like, that's the rule. But that's kind of it. The rest of it is that you set your own prices and you do what you want. And so I have my own rate, right? Which is like my rate. However, that rate I can't really use in like a metaphysical bookstore space. I've explained this briefly before. One, if you go in to buy a Sage bundle and then you're looking at my rate, those two things just don't go together. It's too much of a jump, right? Um, but two, I have to be mindful of what my rate is in the physical space, because I don't want to then um, price myself higher than the other practitioners, knowing that I'm the newest one, right? So even though everyone is spiritual or whatever, like, people are still hella competitive, because it's still you running your own business. And if you're coming in making all of the money and you're new, people don't like that. So there's a bit of a game, there's a strategy that needs to be played in terms of like how you're introducing yourself into the space in a way where you feel like you're getting what is yours, but but other people don't feel like you're taking what is theirs, right? And so I had came up with a number that I wanted. And for me, the number felt like settling. It didn't feel like, oh, this is a good number. It felt like settling because I was like, this is like 50%, damn it, 50% off what I typically charge. For me, that's like a massive cut, right? And but I can't charge my actual rate in that kind of space. And that's most people. That's not like a Mystic Rain issue. This is just practitioners in general. You'll oftentimes see that practitioners, um, they have their own rate, but then if they're doing anything that with like in person or they're partnering with some kind of space or a store, that the rates change, right? It's because there's like business and commerce and like political things that go into what a rate is and isn't. Anyway, so I came up with this number and I was like, all right, I'll take it. Right. But it wasn't like a number where I was like, oh, yeah, this is great. And I'm thinking in my mind that it's like a decent number. I recognize that it wasn't on a lower end, but I had to be like, okay, but you have to be true to like what you are, right? What you are, what you do, and what you know that you have an ability to contribute, right? But also, too, in addition to that, there's also an added element of what other people have said you are, right? Like, it's one thing to have a rate, but if you have a rate and people are honoring that, people are validating and they're saying, no, like this is what she is, right? And so I'm dealing with like that, knowing that it's a rate that has been validated, right, by people to then come into a space where I have to drop the rate that I am, and then I'm struggling with that. Anyway, so I pick a number and I'm thinking that like, okay, this is it. This is fine. I'm not undercutting anybody. I'm not the highest one there because you can increase your rates over time. And so my thing is like, okay, start at one number and then you slowly go back up and then you go up to a number that you're comfortable with, right? So I'm thinking I'm like at the lower end. Anyway, I pull up all the bios for all the practitioners that are there. And I realized that I actually set the rate to be the highest. Um, and I did so much work not to do that. Like I was literally calculating. Like, okay, 30 minutes, this can be this much, 1 hour, this can be this much. And I think the person that's the busiest in that space, I think they charge this much, blah, 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 blah. Okay, but I have a lot of respect for that person. That person has been there for a while. I know these practitioners have been there for a few years. I don't want to be disrespectful going in because I'm the new one. Okay, so if I set it here, then like that should be okay. And then I set it there, went and checked all the rates, and was the highest one. So that means one or two things. I don't know if you guys can hear my husband, he is in the back building a desk. And so there's some tussling. Um, but that means one or two things. Either I have just severely underestimated my ability to do math, right? Um, but then there's this other part of me that's like, is this a metaphysical like knowing or like a metaphysical hint that perhaps you become the highest one? It's really weird to say that, right? It's really weird to like say that out loud. But my thing is for me to have gone through so much work to like not produce that outcome, to then have that outcome be produced, I was like, okay, obviously there's something here that I need to be aware of. And then I was like, okay, you know what? Actually, let me go ahead and look at all these bios again. And let me go ahead and look at all the faces again of the practitioners. And then I'm reading their bios and I'm going over it because I'm trying to see, well, what is different? Because also, too, when you're thinking about business, it's more than just like how much are you going to charge, is what do you think that you're offering? And then what do you think that people will get from you, right? And in a metaphysical space, it's a little bit different because it's not like, oh, I'm offering, what's a really easy example that we hear about all the time? Like, okay, so recently courses are really popular, right? So in a metaphysical space, it's more than just, oh, I'm offering a course, you get this from this course, and so you pay this fee. In a metaphysical space, people gain things from your aura. People gain things from your wisdom. People gain things from simply being in your presence. It's like so many of you have that experience where you're minding your business, a stranger comes up to you and they start telling you about their life story. And then you're sitting there like, okay. And then they walk away And then before they say bye, they say, "Oh, thank you so much. You have no idea how much I needed that. You did nothing but stand there, and yet this person experienced all of this healing, right? There's value in that exchange. Even though you're not physically doing something, or you think you're not physically doing something, the presence, the energy that you're carrying is healing other people. And there's a value exchange in that, right? And so when you are trying to figure out prices in the form of metaphysics, you're looking at what you're doing, but you're also looking at, from a metaphysical perspective, what are people gaining through the energetic exchange, regardless of whether or not you are doing what you feel is a lot of energetic exchange or not. You may just be being naturally you, but for a different person, that is the energy exchange, right? You giving someone a smile and asking someone how they're doing, that is an energy exchange. When some people are walking around going, no one has asked me how I've been doing for like months, and you're the first one that did that. But for you, you're thinking, oh, it's not that big of a deal, right? It's a big deal. So you're factoring all of that in. So anyway, so I go back to the bios and I'm reading everyone's bios, and then I'm looking at everyone's photos. And I'm thinking, and I'm looking at what some of the people are saying that they have the ability to do. And in my mind, I like assigned a value to it. And I'm like, oh, okay, so surely they must be charging this amount of money. And then I scroll down and I see the amount of money that they're charging, and it's like pennies. And I'm like, oh, whoa. So then I go to the other one. I read a new bio. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. They must be charging this amount of money. And then I scroll down and they're not. And then what I realized after going through all the bios was like, everybody here has money blocks. Everybody here has money blocks. Everyone here has money blocks, success blocks, worthy blocks. And because of all of these blocks, it has impacted what they're charging. Because I'm looking at them like, these are valuable services that you're actually providing, right? Like some of them are doing like such unique things that are very hard to find in spaces. And they're, in my opinion, undervaluing. I'm like, people would pay so much more for that, actually, for something like that. That is so cool. Not only is it a service, you're providing like an experience. People would pay for that. They would love that. They would love you in that, right? But this is all you're charging for that? And then so I'm sitting here going around being like, okay, well, maybe I got to price myself this way or price myself that way. The reason why it's not resonating is because I have to price myself in accordance to everybody else who are holding money blocks. And I'm like, ooh, how do I navigate that one? Right? And then it was really interesting because then I went to sleep. And then I had a dream, and this was all last night. And then as I'm sleeping, spirit was dropping, like, you do it this way, you do it this way, you word it like this, you take your bio, you make your bio like this, structure it that way, you charge this for that, you charge this for that, you charge this for that. Don't worry about this person over here with that bio because they got blah, 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 blah going on. And don't worry about this person over here with this bio because they got blah, 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 that going on. And it was just like download streaming, and essentially them telling me, this is how you're going to navigate that situation and get around that, because I don't want my business to be run off of other people and their money blocks, because then that makes me broke. And I gotta be real honest, I don't do well being broke. But then that got me thinking, how many of you all are out there running your life in accordance to somebody else's energetic block? How many of you, because there's a lot of people over here that want to be spiritual entrepreneurs or are spiritual entrepreneurs or working on growing it. I have a very busy, businessy, ambitious collective, which I absolutely love. And I'm so proud of all of you whenever you guys tell me the things that you're working on or trying to work on or trying to start up, right? But is it possible that some of those things are going the way they're going because you have priced yourself in accordance with other people's money blocks, taken them in as your own money blocks, and then you're like, I don't really understand why this is working? For those of you that like really want love, but then you're like, but I can't find it, and love sucks, and love doesn't exist, and nobody will ever love me, and I watched my mother and father, or they got a divorce, and they didn't love each other in the end. And then you're like, see, this is why I'm still single. And you're over there reaffirming your own self-limiting beliefs with, quite honestly, a crock of bullshit And then you're like, well, I don't understand why I'm single. Is it possible, just hear me out, that you have taken an array of limiting beliefs in regards to like love, romance, and relationships from other people that you've then adopted as your own belief? And then perhaps that is what's holding you back from actually finding the love that you so desire, because we are metaphysical beings. If you go on Tinder and you date someone briefly who is just a dick, okay? They're just an ass. And they're like, well, I have commitment issues. My ex 5 years ago left me and I haven't regained composure since then. And then you're taking that and you're going, this is the reason why I'll never find love. Look at this idiot over here. I spent my time and energy and resources trying to get to know this person, but this person is hung up on their ex. And then you take that as a reflection of you. Like, how is that a reflection of you? Like, that person has the problem. That person is the one with the block. That person is the one with the self-worthiness issues because they felt like they weren't worthy enough for that one person. They've carried it with them. Now you're over here looking at yourself feeling inferior because you're like, I don't understand why they won't choose me over this ex that they had. And then you're taking that and you're going, and then you're making it your block when it wasn't even your business to begin with. No, like it's them that feels like they're not worthy of love or that people will never love them. But if you are taking that self-limiting belief and then you're adopting it as your own belief, then you're going to sit here and wonder why you're having a hard time attracting love. Because here's the thing with people who are like ready to love, right? Who want to be in love, they're not attracted to that kind of energy. They're not attracted to people who have worthiness issues around whether or not they should or should not be loved, because it's a waste of time. If someone is coming in actively trying to love you and you're over here going, oh, I don't know, oh, I can't trust, that's annoying. It's annoying, okay? Cut that out. If you're sitting here and you're thinking about like money problems or money issues, and money comes like this, right? It's waves, right? And the reason why it does this is because it's energy. Energetic waves, man, right? So it'll do this, right? But if you're sitting here and you're like, well, my whole family, they've had hard times with money. My whole family, they grew up in poverty. Well, yeah, because your grandmother or great grandmother was alive during the Great Depression, okay? For all of my black brothers and sisters that are out there, like we have ancestors that were slaves that for a lot of us we can actually track it back to. My family, we could track it back to the slave. We know her, okay? Her name was Della. We know the slave. Like we know who we came from. Like it's not that long ago, right? And so if you're taking that energy and then you're taking it with you, even though you are now the descendant and you're holding on to that and you're like, but I can't make money, because you're holding on to an energy stream from a slave. And as the ancestor, she or he wouldn't want you to do that anymore. But you're holding on to it. You're holding on to the money block that your mother had. But when your mother was growing up, she couldn't legally have a bank account. That's not your circumstance, okay? So times have changed. Yes, your mother, your grandmother, they had money blocks, but the society was different. The way society was set up and configured was different. The laws were different. They were working with a different set of circumstances. You look at your because a lot of people have had grandparents that were in those old-fashioned marriages where the man was out there rolling stone. He had multiple families, right? My grandfather was a Rolling Stone. Don't know about the multiple families. My father had multiple families, right? But my grandfather had a girlfriend the entire time he was married to my grandmother. In fact, when my grandmother died, 2 days later, he had asked for help booking a ticket to go see his girlfriend because he needed support while he grieved. Okay? But what the hell was my grandmother supposed to do? In that age, she couldn't have a bank account. She couldn't own land, property. She had to put up with it. She wasn't there because she loved him. She had it to survive. Well, I'm sure by the end she loved him, I guess, as a companion, maybe. But she had to survive. But if you're taking that narrative and then you're going, well, it didn't work out for my grandparents, it didn't work out for my parents. How am I supposed to fall in love? You are taking a money block or a love block that developed for a different set of reasons, for a different set of circumstances, and you're taking it and you're claiming it as your own. And then you're wondering why it's not working out for you. Because you're living in the 1950s. I also had another thing, like another spiritual thing last night. And I'm going to say this, and it's not going to resonate with everyone right away. And to be quite honest with you, I'm still in the process of like digesting it. But essentially, with my conversation with Spirit, because I was like, Spirit, what the hell is going on? Right? Because my life at the moment personally is changing dramatically. Like, I was going left, and then I woke up one morning, and then I was going right. Like, my life is just flipping on its head. And to be quite honest with you, like, I spent a solid 2 weeks hyperventilating with multiple anxiety attacks a day, right? Trying to process this new life that's like weaving itself, right? And it was really interesting because I knew that I was going into a tower moment. I had been reading my cards since July or August, and Tower every single time. Tower was coming out, Eight of Cups was coming out, Five of Cups was coming out, all of the leaving, breaking up, loss, grief cards kept coming out, and they've been coming out since the summer. And prior to them coming out, I had a sort of like meditation session with Spirit where I was downloading a lot of information, and they were like, hey, we got this thing for you. We've got this opportunity for you. We think you're going to love it. We would love it for you. Do you want it? And I was like, yeah, oh my God, give it to me. Right. And then Spirit was like, hold on. But like, do you seriously want it? And I was like, yeah, give it to me now. Like, what are you talking about? And they were like, hold on. And then they were like, because if you take this opportunity, your life that you know now has to change. And they were like, you don't have a choice. What you know now, you will not know later. It'll be like a 180-degree flip. Everything that you think that you've currently worked your life up towards this point will no longer have any relevance in your life anymore, type of change. And then I was like, well, what is it? And then they told me what it was. And I'm not telling you what it is because Spirit right now is telling me not to tell you what it is because it's still cooking. But they were like, but if you accept this, like, you have to understand that your life will not be the same. And I was like, I accept, because it sounded marvelous. And I also, too, if I'm going to be really honest with myself at that point, wasn't totally like fulfilled in life. Like, would look around and be like, I should be fulfilled. Like, on the outside, it looks like I'm fine. And I am, right? But just like spiritually and energetically, and like I wasn't feeling creative and like that spark of inspiration and like that spark that like drives life, that makes life feel like it's worth living, is I didn't have any of that. I was just more so like on autopilot, trying to figure out like, well, how do I laugh again? I remember having this goal of like, I want to be in a situation where I'm smiling a lot and I'm laughing a lot. Like, how do I get there? Nothing to me is funny enough to laugh about. Like, that's where I felt like I was. And they were like, okay, well, if you accept this, and then they were like, are you sure? They just kept asking me that, and I was like, yeah. They said, well, you need to do exactly what we say, and you need to do exactly how we say it. It was very specific, and I believe I like told you guys this already. And then one of the first instructions that I had was to go to Reiki healing. That was one of the first instructions I had to do on the to-do list. And I'm thinking to myself, no, where's the opportunity? Where's the bells and the whistles? Like you said, I was going to have. And the Spirit was like, no, like, you need to recalibrate because you're not going to be able to hold what's coming in for you like this, right? So they were like, your first order of business, you need to go to Reiki. And then they were like, you need 3 Reiki sessions minimum. But you need to go and you need to make sure you're doing it once a month. And it was like a very specific thing. And I was like, okay. And then prior to that, I actually hadn't done Reiki. I knew what it was, but I hadn't done it. And I hadn't really considered doing it at all. But I had went because I was following directions. And then immediately just started to release all of these things. So the first Reiki session that I had, what ended up happening was I opened. And then after that Reiki session, the experience was coming to a place of acceptance of everything in my life that shouldn't have been there. Right. So the idea is, in order for me to release these things, I need to first understand what needs to be released and then why it needs to go. Right. And so after that first Reiki session, it became very clear situations that I was in that I shouldn't have been in, environments that I was in that I shouldn't have been in, relationships with people, friendships, whatever, that I had with people that I shouldn't have had, even relationships with family members that needed to be on ice, not necessarily needed to disappear. But in the meantime, while going through this window and going through this period of time, while I'm transitioning and transforming and whatever, they couldn't be there. And the reason for why they couldn't be there was because the energy was not an energetic match. And for what was supposed to come in, was required such a high of a vibration in order to manifest it and to create it, that if I were to allow myself to be surrounded by these people, it would have stunted the process, because I would have been bombarded by their doubt, their fears. Even if those people didn't say it out loud, if I were to share what I was doing with them and they were to think it, because thought form is manifest, right? If they had a thought that was somewhat negative, it would have manifested itself in the energy field of what I was actually working on. And so it was just such clarity, and it happened immediately. Why things were the way they were, why I felt like I wasn't laughing as much, why I wasn't as fulfilled as much, and why I was confused about this thing. Because it was like, I went to school for all these years and I paid all this money to go and be this thing and become this thing, and then now I don't like it. And then realizing that it didn't have anything about liking or not liking it, that it had to do with you are bigger than that. And so I had to process that, right? I had to process this idea of like, okay, you did all the right things. You checked all the boxes. You went to school. You moved up in the career ladder, right? And, you are working jobs that historically people actually retire out of. And those are the roles that you're having. And like, you started getting those jobs when you were in your mid-20s, right? But it's like working for you. And then realizing like, but I don't understand why I'm not fulfilled in those. Was because those roles didn't allow me to be as big as I'm supposed to be. And what I mean by big, I mean by allowing my spirit to expand, allowing me to be shiny. Because one thing about capitalism, you cannot go into an office, be good at your job, and then also be pleasant to be around. Don't be good at your job and then also like miss congeniality. Someone that people actually like, right? Because at that point, you're two things. And now you're like more annoying to deal with and to tolerate than if you were something else. And so it's more so in like that kind of aspect, that like your level of creativity, your ability to solve problems, your ability to be in an authoritative role, but also be someone that people like and respect. Like those are too many things that are working for you that like people around you aren't going to like. And in those environments, you've got people that are competing for what they perceive that you have, whereas you on the surface, it looks like you can do it easily. Because I would have people tell me that. I would have people that were much older than me, right? Like old enough to be my mother, right? My father say to me, it comes so easy to you. Like, and then them be resentful that they have to come to me and ask questions, and I was the one that had the answer to the questions and could tell them how to do something. They would be resentful that they would have to come to me for approval or permission to do something when I'm the one that's running it, when it's my department, right? And so being in a space where you're like that and you're competing with those political influences didn't allow me to shine in the way that I'm supposed to shine. Part of what I do is assist people. Part of what I do is to teach people. That's a spiritual thing. It's part of spiritual karma that I incarnated with, because it's part of the spiritual plan, right? It's not because I'm trying to make you feel inferior, but in those traditional workplace places, that is the outcome. People around you start to feel inferior when you're just going about your life, and then they make it difficult for you. And so what I realized was that it had nothing really to do with the fact that I didn't like what I was doing, or I didn't like my job. It had everything to do with the other people that were around me and the energy that they were sending at me, right? That was just now then bombarding my energy field and creating a situation where I was like, I just don't feel like I'm in alignment because I'm in all these circumstances where I'm not appreciated for the gift that I fucking am, right? And I'm a gift, okay? And that's not only hard for people to admit that about themselves, but it's hard for people to say that out loud because they feel like, oh my God, am I being like cocky? Like, no, you're a fucking gift. Do you realize that out of all the sperm that swam to an egg, you made it? Like, you're a gift, man. Okay. Some of you, I'm your name, you're watching this right now. Your name is Miracle. Your name is Destiny. Your name is Hope. And you're sitting here feeling like you're not a gift. Come on now. So that first month was me learning all the things that didn't work, or like the clarity as to why it didn't work. The next month I went in, and the intention I set for that one, and I think I told you guys this too, was I want to release the people, the things, the place. I want to release the people, places, and things, all nouns, that are no longer serving my highest good. And then when I tell you, I blinked and 30 days later, it was gone. It was gone. So where I'm at emotionally is recovering from feeling like the rug got pulled out from underneath me. Because part of that exercise was releasing people, places, and things that I actually really genuinely loved. And then also accepting that the reason why they were being released wasn't necessarily because of me specifically. It wasn't necessarily because like I didn't want it, or it wasn't good, or I didn't like it, I didn't want it, I wasn't inspired by it. Sometimes it was like, it's because they're not good, right? So for example, like I could really be fond of somebody, but because of the place that they are in their life, if they stick around me in this period, they could harm me. And not necessarily physically, but they can harm me mentally or emotionally or spiritually because they're not in a good place. And it also doesn't mean that they don't love me too. I had to learn that I could have relationships with people where we both loved each other, but because of them and where they were, not me, they had to go. And spirit cleared them out. And then spirit was like, "You good?" I was like, "Nah, bro." And so right now in my life is like this, is this massive clearing. Now the good thing is the clearing is starting to slow itself down because it was running at rapid speed, right? But it's starting to slow itself down now, and things are now starting to happen, and things are now starting to come in. And I don't know, that's not true. I do know what's supposed to come in, but I only know the outcome. I only can see the end goal. I don't actually know the between from now until then, what my life is actually supposed to look like. And that is a little bit terrifying. Because who wants to feel so vulnerable? Nobody wants to feel that. But what I do have is faith and understanding that it's supposed to happen this way. Because we go through all types of things in life and we go, why me? Why did it happen to me? Not realizing, girl, I'm gonna need you to put that in a book and then sell it. What are you talking about? Why did it happen to you? Things that happen to you, you have an ability to use and flip and then teach other people with it if that's something that you actually want to do. Because things happen to everybody. Everyone is looking for an answer on how to get through. People relate to you when you go, well, this is how I did it, because people are trying to figure out how should they do it. And if you were someone that's in a place where you're like, okay, I'm going to be open and share these parts of my journeys with people, people will actually listen. Ew, that's just you throwing up? And then you eating it? I gotta tell you, this dog, she is so quiet regularly. She's actually a very well-behaved dog on her own. It's her own like personality. She doesn't really bark too much, and she's really like chill. She's like, whatever you want to do, I'm here, I'm down for it. But whenever I start recording, it's like she's got to let me know she's in the room. Now she's coughing up fur balls. You would have thought that she was a smoker. It's crazy.